Welcome to the Tzurba M'Rabanan Hilchot Shabbat Program with Rabbi Shalom Rosner. Tzurba is a revolutionary halacha sefer which guides you through over 300 topics in Jewish law in a unique signature style. In this weekly series specifically, Rabbi Shalom Rosner learns through the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat volumes, helping us all master the Halachot of Shabbat in just 2 years. Tzurba volumes are available for purchase worldwide on Amazon. And to learn more about Tzurba, or for those in Eretz Yisrael looking to purchase volumes, please head over to tzurbaolami.com. For more information, see the description below. And now, Rabbi Shalom Rosner.
Okay, we are up to the next Shiur here in our Tzurba M'Rabanan series. We started last week the halachas of Pikuach Nefesh being Docha Shabbos, Shiur number 6. Halachas of medicine on Shabbos. Again, we're in the volume 21 of the Lax family edition, the Mervis family volume, and we're in the Shiur about medicine and halacha, which was dedicated in memory of Dr. Robin Goldman, Raisa Bas Tzvi Yaakov. So we are discussed last week about the halacha of Shabbos is pushed aside for any even suffix pikuach nefesh. We spoke about even if somebody comes and it's already done, one would still say that they did a mitzvah, and therefore one is allowed to do it, and it's a mitzvah to do it. We spoke about internal wounds, any type of internal wound or potential internal wound that is also included. So let's go to page number 290 now, where we have the second half of this year. Second half of this year. For whom do we violate Shabbos? Who are allowed to be violate Shabbos for? So anybody really, right? So says the Gemara in Yuma, even if somebody. I'm not sure if we went through all the sources last week, but remember the final source of Shmuel in Maseches Yuma is v'chai bahem v'lo sheyamas bahem. But there's also a secondary source, a second to last source, which is quoted by some poskim, chalel Shabbos achas kedei sheyishmar Shabbosos harbe. Be mechalel one Shabbos so that you can keep other Shabbosos. So again, both of those come up halacha l'maaseh, and we're machmir to save a life for both of those. So here's one nafkamina. The Gemara says in Yuma Daf Pehei. Matzu, source number 31. Matzu chai mefachin. If you're uncovering a building that fell down and you find them alive, keep going, get them out. Matzu chai pshita. What does that mean? Of course, if you find them alive, you get them out. Lo tzricha dafilu l'chai isha. Even for momentary, for temporary life. Meaning, what if he's not going to live till next Shabbos? So you don't have the svara of Chalel Shabbos Achas, Kedei Sheyishbar Shabbos Harbe. What if he's an invalid and he's not going to do any mitzvahs? Doesn't matter. V'chai bahem v'lo sheyamas bahem. Even if he's not going to keep any more mitzvahs. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Shin Chav Tes 32. Afilu mitzau merutzatz. Even if somebody finds that they're crushed, sheni yachal lichios elef isha. They can only live for a couple of hours. Mechachinu botkim ad chotmo. You check and you see up to his nose to see if he's alive. That's the halacha. The Bir Halacha notes there that you have to save a person, again, as we just said, even if he won't live till next Shabbos. As we just said, even though the svara of Chalal Shabbos Achas doesn't apply, Mishum Delav Dafka Shabbos Hu Adam Mishar Mitzvahs. So you can do any mitzvahs. It's not Dafka Chalal K'li Shishmar Shabbos Harbe to do any mitzvahs. And then the Bir Halacha says, and maybe even no mitzvahs. Amram be'emes nira dekol zehu l'taima ba'alma. Ava v'ladina lo tali klal b'mitzvahs. It doesn't depend on how many mitzvahs they're going to do. De'ein atam de'dachinan mitzvah achas b'shvil harbe mitzvahs. Elo dachinan kol mitzvahs b'shvil chaim shel Yisrael. It's the life of a Jew, so we do it just for that. Like Shmuel says, like that beautiful Rambam's lashon in Perek Beis of Hilchos Shabbos, she'ein mishpatei haTorah nekama ba'olam ela rachamim v'chesed v'shalom ba'olam. And therefore, we save a life, even if he's not going to do a mitzvah. And Bir Halacha continues, even for a chereshot of a katan. Lefize barad afilu katan merutzatz nami mechalin. Ava b'tilo yishbar shabbosos gam lo yizvad evelo yavel chal gadol. Doesn't matter. Chereshota avagav de'ina b'nei mitzvahs mechalin aleim. It's life itself. Life itself, not just the ability to do mitzvahs. The Gemara here discusses now the issue of suicide attempts, terrible reality. Obviously, if there's any slight chance and somebody thinks that somebody is in that state, so then we're Mechal Shabbos, even though the person is doing it for himself, doesn't matter. We have a chiyuv to save them. The Maral Diskin, all the poskim, the Maral Diskin writes in a Shuva 150 years ago. Source 35, Lanias Daiti. Afilu Misha Rotzela Abed Atzmo Mitsuvin Anu Lahatzila Afilu B'Shabbos. We don't say, oh, he's doing it to himself. No, we're saving him because he's not allowed to do it to himself, and we're protecting him from himself. The Birkei Yosef says that if somebody took poison on Shabbos, one has to violate Shabbos. It's called violation, but it's really keeping Shabbos in order to save him. Rav Moshe also discusses this in the first volume of Igros Moshe, 36. Mashinis topic Yedidi. Im kisha sakana hevi adam al atzmo b'pshiyaso d'shema asor chal Shabbos alav. Right? What happens if it was his pshia? Right? Our case, it was his pshia. He was negligent. He was even mazed. Hine lani as daiti imei efshar lomar zeklal. D'lo niskar b'shum duchto chilik bazeh. There's no such thing as this chilik. That if somebody did a pshia, so we don't have to save him. Even if it's his own fault. That's what all the poskim say. That's what Rav Avadia says. That's what all the poskim say. If you look in a newer sefer, Nafshi B'She'elasi, by Rabbi Yonatan Rosenzweig, he quotes some of the new conditions that some might be familiar with. You can read it in English to somebody's more comfortable. A person in a mental state where there is a concern that they might harm themselves or others. This includes anyone whose judgment is impaired due to their illness to the extent that it's not possible to guarantee they won't harm themselves. Sometimes we have to tie people's arms to the hospital bed. It's terrible, but sometimes that's to protect them. Treating them to help them recover from this condition permits transgressing even Torah prohibitions. Examples of such conditions in contemporary psychiatric terms: schizophrenia, other psychotic disorders, bipolar disorder type 1, many types type 2, clinical depressions. All of these, sometimes they could be in mortal danger, and one is allowed and obligated to violate Shabbos to help them. And if there's any way that they need to relax, watching television, music, driving, smoking, several examples of situations where one can be Makarev and Machalal for them. So that is number one, saving the life of, it doesn't have to be somebody doing mitzvahs, anybody. What about saving a non-Jew? So this is a tricky issue in the earlier poskim. L'maisa, as we'll see, there's no difference between Jew and non-Jew. If you look at the Rambam, and based on Chazal, that one cannot even save a life of a ger toshav. Miyalden es bas ger toshav b'nei she'anu mitzuvan lachioso ve'ein mechalon av zashab is a ger toshav, a non-Jew who accepted the Sheva mitzvahs. Right? Even that, a ger toshav, one cannot be mechal Shabbos for, because Shabbos is a higher level of a value. But the Ramban says no, a ger toshav, yes, they're included in v'chai bohem. Shenitzavinu, and it's even counted in one of the mitzvahs. So he said the Rambam forgot. Remember the Ramban at the end of the mitzvahs asay and los asay adds on a number of mitzvahs, because after all he knocked out some of the other mitzvahs that the Rambam counted. Nitzavinu lahachios ger toshav lahatzil lo mirato. We're commanded to save the life of a ger toshav, to save him from his state. Shemaya tovea benahar o nafal alav gal. Shevachol kochenu nitrach patzalaz. We do what we can to save him. And to heal him as much as we can. It's a separate mitzvah. The Rambam Ban counts pikuach nefesh is docha Shabbos, and he puts ger toshav in that mitzvah. So it sounds like he includes it. L'maisa, today there seems to be no ramifications of this dispute because the halachas of ger toshav doesn't apply today. Therefore, the poskim say, by the letter of the law, one cannot be mechal Shabbos for any Gentile. But the Chassam Sofer already says, hundreds of years ago, that doing that would be pikuach nefesh for Jews. Chassam Sofer says, Im yesh be'eva zuch shash sakanas nefashis, yishlahater afilu malacha daraisa. So again, this is a lower level reason for a heter, but the Chassam Sofer says, Eva, which definitely applies, it'll become public, that Jews only save the lives of Jews and not non-Jews. That could be dangerous for Jews. Again, that has been the practice of many. The Mishnah Brura, interestingly, does not like it. The Mishnah Brura says very clearly, so maybe he, based on the mitzvahs where he lived maybe only amongst Jews, says the Mishnah Brura in source 41, Siman Shin Lamed, Da, Sha'arofet bizmanenu, afilu ayoter ksherim, einin nisarim bazeklal. The doctors of our day are a nizar in loaning treating Jews on Shabbos. The Maisim B'chol Shabbos shenosim kama parsos l'refuos avdei. They drive in the cars to save a guy. V'kosvin v'shokin samamonim, and they write and they crush spices. Ve'en la mashi yismocha. What are they doing? Diafilu, says the Mishnah Brura, im neima demutochal Shabbos b'yisod Rabbanan. Even if you want to say Yisod Rabbanan is allowed, because Eva, does Eva allow daraisa? Isur daraisa b'vadei asal kul yama. Umachal Shabbos gemurim heim b'mezid. Hashem Yishmarenu. Wow, so this is the Shita of the Mishnah Berurah. The Rav Moshe is very surprised at the comments of the Mishnah Berurah, and Rav Moshe says in all circumstances there is Eva, and this Pikuach Nefesh. It will lead to increased anti-Semitism, endangering of Jewish lives, and therefore there was no difference. Do whatever you need to do. Rav Moshe writes that clearly in Chelak Dalet Siman Ayin Tes, in the next source 42 on page 296, Kishin is Damein. You're in a hospital, or you have a time there. It's your turn. Or there's an accident, you have to be the doctor there. Even though there's no danger for you, the country. The government, there could be very dangerous consequences. He says, I don't understand the Chavetz Chaim. Maybe the Chavetz Chaim lived in his own Jewish bubble. There were plenty of non-Jews around Radin, but he quotes the Chavetz Chaim, and he does not agree. Bizmanenu, he says, Yesh lachush l'sakana kimudumani b'chol makom. There's a danger always. V'gamitzat pirsum ha'yedios, the newspapers. Take a machanasa b'chol olam. Right, and now the internet, in a second, it'll be on it. 30 seconds, it'll be all over the world. Ika michshol ha'melech b'makom l'makom, and therefore pashut. It's kasakana mamish, and there is no difference. So lamaisa, we pass like Rav Moshe, that's the minaga olam. Do whatever is necessary. But Rav Melamed writes that although that we desecrate Shabbos to save the life of any person, if it's possible for the non-Jews to have the non-Jewish slot on Shabbos, so that would be better if one lives in a neighborhood or an area like that. Ubeveit Cholim, says Rav Melamed in source 43. Shemisnal al pi halacha yish lahadif lekvoa b'Shabbos torani l'rofim v'achiyot goyim. If you can have the non-Jews take that slot. My wife did a Shomer Shabbos residency, and she worked almost every Sunday, and she didn't work any Shabbos, and most of the people who worked on Shabbos were goyim. But if there's a Jewish mumche expert, so he has to come to the hospital. He has to come to the hospital. If you look in the footnotes here, he quotes from Rav Rabinovich, right, from Maleo Demim, that this ruling is correct not merely, it's not only Eva. There's something more positive, a minor principle. He argues that a non-Jew who respects the sanctity of human life is equivalent to a ger toshav in this regard, and saving their lives also override the Shabbos in accordance with the Ramban. The Ramban says ger toshav. He says any civilized, respectful person who values life like that has the status of a ger toshav bisman Ramban, and therefore positively, not just Eva, to save their life. And Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Lichtenstein, he quotes, says a similar idea. Okay, what is one allowed to do to save the life? Like how extensive? Meaning, what if you could do something that's not dafka saving their life, but it's making them more comfortable and giving them more the comfort level. So the Maggid Mishnah writes very strongly and maybe even surprising that if somebody's life is in danger, so you could do all of his needs, even if it's malachas that are not critically needed for him to save his life. Says the Maggid Mishnah, Hilchot Shabbos Parak Beis. That Parak Beis is when the Rambam talks about Pikuach Nefesh. Shem hu sheyesh bo sakana hu hamashma delachol tzrachav machalalin v'yava b'shein b'medinas davar sh'onos lo sakana. Right, I'll play music for them. Is that going to save their life if they really want music? So the Maggid Mishnah says, yeah. What happens about moving a bed, moving a hospital bed up, down? Is that going to save their life? It's going to make them more comfortable. So based on this Maggid Mishnah, you're allowed to do it. The Beis Yosef has a diak from Rashi. He thinks that you're not allowed to do it. U'midivrei Rashi, mashma delo shari l'chal Shabbos b'shul chol sheish bo sakana ela dafka b'davar shem lo yasiuhu lo hu mesukan lamus b'shvilo. Only something directly involved. Aval davar sha'afim lo yasiuhu lo ena mesukan lamus. But it's something that if you don't do, he's not going to die. You're not allowed to do. That's what the Beis Yosef is b'dayig from Rashi. The Mishnah Berurah quotes many Rishonim who agree with Rashi, that it only has to do with items that are directly known. The Mishnah Berurah, source 46, Bir alacha jevino mikama poskim desfir leisha afilu b'makam shetzorach chilol ein machalana de Yisrael b'davar sheish lachush bo, that if you don't do it, the life's going to be in danger. Aval kol shebaru she'ein minias oso davar chash sakana. If there's no sakana, if you don't do this, then you don't do it on Shabbos. And me'anachon lahachmir, says the says the Mishnah Berurah. In the footnotes he points out, and this is what many rely on, this Maggid Mishnah, he quotes from Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, said, I believe like the Maggid Mishnah, and I'm not being Mekel in Hilchos Shabbos, I'm being Machmer in Hilchos Pikuach Nefesh. That was Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, and there are those that say, first of all, anybody in a hospital is a Chol Sheit Pasukani, we rely on the Maggid Mishnah, you can move the bed, and you can put on anything. Again, trying to limit it if possible, but if it's needed, one can do it. The Bir Halacha notes that according to all opinions, if you're not allowed to withhold if it's something that's really directly related to their becoming stronger, to becoming better. So if the doctor thinks that music and putting them in a more relaxed state will help them get better and stronger, then l'chora, even Rashi and the other Rishonim would allow it. V'da'ot, says the Bir Halacha, da'afil fi da'asa osir manal, ha'no davke b'davar she'bar lo shelo yichbar chal yodei minias davar zeh. Only by something that you know, if you withhold, it's not going to make a difference. But if you think that by not doing this, he's going to become weaker, then you're Mechal Shabbos. And if he's going to become stronger, you don't hold it back. So example, what about helping them sleep? It's the Mishnah in Shabbos. Mishnah in Shabbos, putting out a candle to help them sleep. So the Mishnah says patur, and the Gemara says there that's one of the places where patur means mutter. Patur means mutter. You're allowed to, says the Mishnah. Says the Gemara there. Shabbos daf lamed. That's the David HaMelech daf. B'chol sheish bo sakana ubedinu delisni mutter ve'ad b'olam esisei chayev tananami reisha patur. And the Rambam notes that this is it's allowed because sleep's can help them get better. If there's another way to make it dark, like moving the chole or putting up some type of cover, so then that's better, obviously. V'zeh chola, says the Rambam, hu chola sheish bo sakana. The Rambam putting on his doctor hat too in the Pirush Mishnayos. U'b'tnai she'efshar lahavir l'makam acher v'lo lahastir esar mimenu. If you can't block the light in any other way or move him to another place. And that's the halach in Shulchan Aruch, that one is permitted to extinguish a candle so a person can sleep, because sleep is going to help them get better and be stronger. Says the Mishnah Berurah, if there is a way to do it without the malacha, then fine. But if you need to do it, you need to do it. Ayin Rambam Pirush Mishnah. Mishnah Berurah quotes the Pirush Mishnayos here. Shekasa the dafka bishi yefshar lahotzi achol makam acher ol haser or mimenu. You can't take him anywhere else. Rotzalomar de kfias kli al gabav. Obviously, not putting it out when you do that. The lavachi bevada yosador latato muksa milav or al iser bechia. Right. It's also better to move muksa. Something. Let's say the candle went out. Well, the candle went out doesn't make a difference, but some other way of moving muksa that would be better. Right? And he says in the Bir Halacha that it's beneficial to him to sleep and to make him stronger. Rav Rosner also says that even if a person is terminally ill, they're not getting better, and there's something to ease the pain, easing the pain is also, you're allowed to be Mechalel Shabbos to ease the pain. Says the Shevet HaLevi Rav Rosner, Vasher sha'altem be'isha sheish la machala she'ein refuah lazeh. V'noltela b'Shabbos yisurin shlo ha'yachal savlam, terrible pain. Ubala kara l'rofe. V'yisafik imasa kedin kivan she'ein l'rofe shum refuah l'machlaza. There's no refuah, you're just getting rid of the pain. Says the Shevet HaLevi, obvious. Pashut ma'od she'ein kan chilul Shabbos. There's no chilul Shabbos here. She'trufos lahashki yisuri achola. Ava b'shino male b'hamachla gufa him b'chal tzorchi chola v'refuah l'kuli alma. It's tzorech achola, and therefore it is mutter even if it's not going to save a life. The pshita t'chia gavna lo garmi yisuve daita. Das achola l'halaganer. So no worse than allowing them to sleep, and therefore any type of pain medication also one is allowed to be mechal Shabbos for that. Okay, so we spoke about for whom and what is allowed to be done. So now we'll get into who should do it, who should violate Shabbos for who and whose life is in danger. So the Mishnah tells us in Maseches, the Gemara, in Maseches Yuma discusses the ein osin dvarim halalu, an important line. Lo adei nachrim v'lo adei kusim. I'm in source 454. Ela adei gdolei Yisrael. Who does the malacha? The greatest Jews, Gedolei Yisrael. Right? Sometimes you'll say, "Oh, I don't want to do this. Have somebody else do it. Have a katan do it. Have an isha do it." No. The Gemara says the Gedolei Yisrael. Tosfos explains, right? 3 days in the Rishonim. Why Gedolei Yisrael? Why don't you ask a katan? Why don't you ask a goy? Right? So says Tosfos, Ela b'Gedolei Yisrael. V'yafilu hecha de'efshar benachri. Mitzvah b'Yisrael. Even if there's a guy there, it's a mitzvah to do by Yisrael. We'll see what we paskin. Shema yitzatzel anachri. Maybe the guy won't do it. Maybe he'll be lazy. He won't do it as quickly. V'lo yasav yawadei sakana. So again, according to that reason, if you know the guy could do it right away, and he's actively doing it, then maybe that reason wouldn't apply. But number one, he might not do it right away. Tosfos. The Rambam says, why do it yourself? Why? Kidei shalote Shabbos kala beinehem. They might think, oh, okay, we'll do it, but no, Abba's not doing it. No, Abba does it. B'machal Shabbos, to show them that pikuach nefesh is chaviv over a life. Not that Shabbos is kal, but you're doing it. You're doing it. The Rush also says we don't ask a child because there might be a delay. There might be a delay. So again, the Tosfos, the guy might not do it. The Rambam, you don't want people to look down at the Shabbos is kal. And the Rush, afil yesham ktanim lasosa miyad chayshinan zimin de lesnehu. Even if there's a child here now, if you go for a child and the next time there won't be a child, but you'll say, oh, I need a child to do it, just do it yourself. Va'asila dure basrahu. Right? You might look for a katan and that won't be good enough. The Beis Yosef quotes that, although the Rambam quotes that the malacha should be done by great and wise Jews, lav dafka great and wise Jews, says the Beis Yosef. Father Tony al Gdolei Yisrael, lav gedolim bechachma kamar. Says the Beis Yosef, doesn't have to be great in chachma. Kidamashma lachor b'shagazav Rambam. Ela de Gdolei Yisrael v'chachameim. Ela vade gedolim afukik tanim. It just means adults. Doesn't mean gedolim chachamim. The Rambam says b'nei das. Beis Yosef says the Rambam is lav dafka. Says the Taz, why does he say it's lav dafka? The Rambam says what he says. The Rambam says, right, literally, was the Rambam? We had the Rambam back in source 56, right? Gedolei Yisrael v'chachameim. Right, the Gemara just said Gedolei Yisrael. The Rambam's added word, v'chachameim. So the Taz says, no, it means the greatest, the wisest should be entrusted with doing these malachas. Says the Taz, source 59. V'beis Yosef Kasav, the Hakdol Yisrael Av Gedol Machachma Kamar, v'kama shikel aravis yado. Right, he flipped his hand. Latzeis bipshuto lefaris bedocha gadol. Why are you taking out the pashup shot of the Rambam? Tim kidvarav lo hayalomar Gedolei Yisrael lashon tveikus el lashon gedolim. Devadai, say you should have said gedolim, not Gedolei Yisrael. Sounds like big important rabbis, not just gedolim lafuke ktanim. Gedolei Yisrael usually doesn't. You don't have that lashon. So says the Taz el mitzvah min hamuvchar kamar. It's a mitzvah min hamuvchar. V'kavana shlo tomar sheish laso de akum. V'asar de Yisrael. Ela adarabba mitzvah yesh bedavar v'gedol Yisrael yasuha. The nimsa sheish isra de akum or Yisrael atzmam yesh ma'ila la'oseh. One should do it. So the Beis Yosef and the Taz both agree that you shouldn't ask a guy if you see, as we saw in the Gemara. The question is, what type of Jew? What type of Jew? Okay. Why would you look for a guy? Why would you look for a we'll get to Shinui. Because the general rule is we try to do less Isurim. That's what makes this whole sugya a big chiddush. Right? We try to do less Isurim if we can. So say a Jew does it normally, Gedolei Yisrael. Right? The Gemara says in Yuma that if you have a choice of eating different Isurim, and you have to eat one to stay alive, you eat the less one. Tan Rabbanan, 60. Mishach, so bulmis, if somebody gets a Caesar, machilin so akalakal, you feed him the lesser of two non-kosher foods. Tevel v'nevela, machilin so nevela. For example, tevel, which is Misavei Shamayim v'nevela, you give a nevela, right? Nevela because it is a lesser of an Isser. The Ravya learns from here, from this Gemara, Machinos o Akalakal, many know that Gemara. You eat the lesser of two not kosher. The Ravya says here, you learn from there, then whenever you're involved in any situation, it's better to do the less Avera. Not just the two levels of not kosher. Says the Ravya nearly, the Shaminan Mina, one of the great Chachmei Ashkenaz. When it says if you're Zaraz and you jump, it's Meshubach Chayin Kagon Shetzorach Mitun Ksas Lagoyim. If there's any delay to get a guy, to do a Peshino, if there's any delay, then that's what this means. Do it by a Jew. But if you have a goy, if you have two drivers of the ambulance, one Jew, one non-Jew, the non-Jew could drive the ambulance. So the Ravya learns from the Gemara of Akal Akal to all cases of trying to minimize the Isurim. And that's what you should try to have a guy. And the Ramah in the Darkei Moshe quotes that the Ravya is surprising, but that's the Minhag Olam. Says the Darkei Moshe, right? That's the Ramah's commentary on the tour before he wrote the Ramah. Divrei Ravya tzarachiyun. Da kasafti le'el b'shem tosas aran. Da aser lasas lo davar de goy. Mihu. You can't do it by a guy. You have to do it with a Gedolei Yisrael. Muki meduma li shenoagin gedivrei Ravya. Right? The Ramah says, I think the Gedolei Yisrael should do it. That's the Pashup Shot of the Gemara and the Rambam. But the Ravah says that's the Minhag Olam. If there's a guy there, you could do it with a guy if there is no shihui. And the Shulchan Aruch quotes like his position in the Beis Yosef, and that is like the Rambam. Like the Rambam. I'm sorry. He goes like this, his pshat of the Rambam. Meaning, remember, he says Gedolei Yisrael means Gedolim. So he says, don't do it Aydei Yashav V'Ktanim, Aydei Yisraelim, Gedolim U'Bnei Das. So some say, remember the Taz said, no, the Chachmei Yisrael have to do it. And the Ramah says the opposite. The Ramah goes in the opposite direction from the Rav Yah. V'yesh omrim shem efshar lasos below dichui below ichor adei shinui. If you could do it without any delay with the shinui, you have to make a phone call. Do it with your pinky. If you can call just as well with your pinky, osa adei shinui. V'yem efshar lasos eno Yehudi below ichor klal, and a non-Jew, and the delay won't cause any damage. Osa adei eno Yehudi v'chein noagin. But the Ramah says if there's any chash of any delay, to summarize, the Mishnah Berurah adds that if there are wise people present, they should be the ones like the Taz. Like the Taz says, the Pashut Pshat of the Rambam, Gedolei Yisrael v'Chachameihem. But never delay in order to ask others to perform the required tasks. And whoever is there should do it. And the Mishnah Berurah also quotes the Taz. Right, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sheisham b'maybed zeh chachamim mitzvah l'chadchila. The chacham also would know what is needed to be done or was not needed to be done. And then he quotes the Taz, Lav minag vasikinu. The Taz argues on the Ramah. Right, the Taz argues on this Rav Yah. Right, Da'af yochalasas de'enu Yehudi mikol makom Yisrael yizaris b'davar yoser. He'll be mizaris even more because he recognizes the value of every life, and therefore harei zeh mishubach. The Shmir Shabbos also says that if a non-Jew is right there, like the Rav Yah, it's better for him to do it if there is no delay. We saw before, back in source 63, we saw in the Shulchan Aruch that the Ramah quotes that if it's possible to do it without a delay, then you should do it with a shinui, with a goy. The Ramban derives a similar law regarding a woman in childbirth. The Ramban in Torah Ha'adam, that's his sefer on refuah and the like, says regarding childbirth also the view of the Or Zarua, that although one should not ask a guy to do the malacha due to the concern of delay, but if you just do it with a shinui and it won't cause delay, one should do it with a shinui. The Mishnah Berurah adds, it applies anywhere. Right, we've been speaking about guy till now, but now shinui also. Below ichar aydei shinui. To call kama denucha lasos beheter lo shaf yeter and asebiser. If you can do it with a shinui, which is mutter midaraisa, remember we spoke about shinui is durabanan, so it's better. Venir dua dinim aydei shinui misacher davar ma'at. Even if it's going to delay a drop, but it is not going to delay a drop in order that it's going to make a difference, so then that is also going to be allowed. The Maggid Mishnah has an interesting shita. He infers from the Rambam that the Rambam only requires a shinui by a yoledes, but not for anybody else in danger. Right, not for anybody else in danger. Why would that be? A yoledes is a different type of danger. It's teva ha'olam. That's something that's expected, that we know is coming. It's teva ha'olam. So maybe there, shinui would be required. By all other cases, no, automatically, just do it directly. Milashon Rabbeinu, says the Maggid Mishnah Nira, She'ein chol sheish bo sakana b'chlal shinui ela hachaya. Regular chol sheish bo sakana, you don't need a shinui. Do it directly. You don't need the shinui. Only childbirth. V'zeo shekadav arizah b'lakanas tafashas. V'lo hizker shinui b'chol sheish bo sakana v'chulu. And why? So says the Maggid Mishnah towards the end of the piece, top of 307. V'atam bazeh nira mepnei she'ke'ev hayoledes v'chavaleha hem kedavar tivi la. It's different. It's dangerous, but it's natural. It's very unusual. So you try to do that. The also rules like this position against the one quoted by the Ramah. And even if a woman is in childbirth, the shinui is only required at the actual time of the childbirth. At the birth. Beforehand, you could also do bishinui. By contrast, the Shmir Shabbos says that always, not just chaya, always, if you have a chol sheish b'sakana, and you could always do a b'shinui, do a b'shinui. If you could do it as a guy, do a b'guy. That's the minhag, like the Rav Yah says. Says if you're a Shabbos, summarizing, mechalan as a Shabbos, latzal as chayadam. Your mechal Shabbos rak kasher ein efsharis lasos as adavar ba'osa hayeilus mibilil chalas Shabbos. The only time that you do it straight is if doing the shinui or a guy would delay and wouldn't be as effective. Avalam kayem es efsharis. If there is a possibility, lasos zos ba'ofan hamuter. Also, if you could do it on a mutter daraisa level, also lachalas Shabbos elim kin yesh lachshos, unless you're nervous, by doing it, it's going to cause a problem. And therefore he says, try to minimize, like the Rav says, and that's what we try to do, minimize the Isurim, the Ramah, as long as it won't be mashpia l'ra'ah. V'gam yish l'tzamtzim es chumras ha'isur. Im efshal hasil mi bli lavar al ha'isur d'Rabbanan. You could do a d'Rabbanan, do a peshinui, do a peshinui. If you could use disappearing ink, you should use disappearing ink. B'chol mikreh, every case. If there's any chashash that it's going to delay and cause problems, then just do straight. Do straight. But other than that, we say try to do it with a shinoi. So we spoke about who to be Mechal Shabbos for. We spoke about what's included. Remember that Maggid Mishnah about anything that would make him more comfortable. And we spoke about how to do it in this last piece. So this is all Adkan, the first shiur relating to medicine and chole on Shabbos. But next time we get to the shiur number 7, which I think is the last one in this volume, shiur number 7, which is the second part where we talk about risk of limb loss, chole, medicines, exercise, other aspects of this topic. Okay, we will stop here as we're up to shiur number 7 in this packet. Trying to stop the video, it doesn't seem to be stopping. The video is over. Just the internet's not letting me shut it down. Shiur, but because the internet is not great, so it's not letting me stop the video.
You gave it Shiur?
I just gave it Tzurba Shiur.
You want to go down to Yerushalayim?
Well, let's filter. Let's filter. How long are you planning to stay?
That's all. You want to go pick up the phone now? I'm going to do that first. My father is in his test now, so I can't really have visitors. I'll go now. Say sugar bowl? And then when he's ready for visitors, we'll go over there.
I mean, what if he's not rapping?
At 9:30, my mother said like 2-3 hours. But by the time we're ready for sugar bowl, I'll be ready.
Okay. Why it's not? Lost my. Where's my thing? Bluetooth on. Where's my? Why isn't my thing coming up? Where is my hotspot?
So what's going to do with my flights? Is I'll be getting several on a book?
I don't know.
On a hotspot?
What?
Do a hotspot.
I'm trying. It's not working.
Why?
I don't know. My hotspot's not working. Oh, 1 second. My Bluetooth hotspot.
There's no internet. Oh, there. iPhone.
You could do your chinuch meeting on Zoom. Who's doing your chinuch meeting?
Hi, Marcus.
Why don't you just do it on Zoom?
Because he's not there now, and he's be there, and he's fine. I told him everything that happens in the. Why it's not.
You know which car is here? Ima?
Yeah.
Which car is here?
Where are you going?
The white one.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave it.
And I still have my olive.
I know.
Where are you going?